So I want to talk about lines, levels, states, and stages and structures of consciousness. Right now I'm actually on a tree trimming job. I'm at work, but I'm listening to Ken Wilber while working. Integral Transformation on Sounds True. You can get it on Audible. It's amazing, and he has these different books. The 1, 2, 3 of God, although it's not about God or religion or anything like that. He's literally talking about consciousness. And then Cosmic Consciousness is Ken Wilber's favorite book. So I'm going to use the cracks in the sidewalk as a kind of an interpreter or a prop, right? A physical prop to help use this parable or to get this through. So here's one. My shoe's untied. So I'm tying my shoe right now, but I'm inside of one square, but my foot's in this square. Do I feel uncomfortable that my foot's in the square behind me? Okay, so if this is your paradigm and this is your reality, you're inside of this state. It could be, so there's lines, levels, states, and stages of consciousness. There's different lines of consciousness. There's like emotional intelligence, there's musical intelligence, there's scientific intelligence, there's natural intelligence. Like I have a buddy, Daniel Miraval. He's a certified arborist. This guy is brilliant when it comes to nature. His nature intelligence is intrinsically has been bestowed upon him before the foundations of the earth and is welled up inside of his soul. It's been put there, and then he also goes and he creates and builds skills to help creatively, procreatively, proactively curate that intelligence. So he demonstratively catapults way beyond that of the average person who just looks out and sees trees, right? There's levels of it, there's lines of intelligence that are like people who can work with their hands and build things, and then engineers, and then there's lines of intelligence that are people who are purely mathematical, like, but it doesn't mean genius or anything. They're just lines of intelligence. Now there's levels of consciousness, which means you could be at a level 1, which means like you're not dumb, you're just at level 1. But as you can move up, like let's say Buddha and Buddhism, let's say Buddha literally could, or Patanjali, or Jesus, or any of these people. I'm putting Jesus in that category, even though he's completely different. But hear me out. Could have spent his entire life practicing Buddhism and meditation and became a level 10, which is the highest level of all. It's this where you hit 4th stage consciousness and you're vibrating at level 10. You spend your life's work doing this, but you have never actually even got past level 1 in mathematical intelligence. So you could be a complete brilliant savant in one line of intelligence. Like my buddy Hatch is a rapper. He's musically extremely intelligent. He's brilliant. His skill sets are off the hook. He can rhyme and come up with alliteration and words and language. It's so developed in his consciousness that it's hit levels of unconscious competence on the competency progression model, right? Like me, I've been doing landscaping forever, and I've hit a higher level of understanding landscaping. So I can go on about this, like I'm like at a level 5 or 6 in landscaping, right? But when it comes to mathematical intelligence, I might be on at a level line at level 2. So now we talked about lines and levels. Let's get into states, because there's states and stages. Okay, so this is very important, because as I stand here, I might be viewing the world out of this paradigm, and even though I'm looking at other lines and levels of intelligence, I can only perceive them based off of where I am here. And I think that what I'm seeing is the truth only because I'm polarized within this level of consciousness. So therefore, I might develop a prejudice, and I don't necessarily mean prejudice like white or black or Chinese or different colors or all that stuff, even though, but what I mean is, and if you actually look up the word prejudice and what it means, and not the legal definition, but more for just the definition. So, well, look, I just talked about it. I just talked about just the word prejudice in and of itself has different meanings based on the paradigm and language and study of research that it came from. Say, as I break this down. So you have a prejudice just towards the word prejudice actually can trigger this egoic landmine in your conscience. Prejudice. It's just a word, right? But so depending on what you're viewing it from, you have these layers of rose-colored glasses, neither good nor bad nor right or wrong, just relative to the experience you're having of the outside world and others are having of you. And that's all it is, and that's the good news. I learned that from my buddy Coach Rob, by the way. He says that shit all the time, like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? And I have to think about it, right? So, you are not your mind, you are not your body, you are not your thoughts. When you are detached and disassociated and you can meditate and observe the state that you've been in all these years and jump out of it, you can look and see everything that you believe has potentially been a lie or a partial lie. Oh my God. So this is what happens when people do like psychedelics or LSD and mushrooms, stuff like that, or more healthily get into deep levels of meditation, or maybe they have a traumatic life event, or maybe have an NDE, a near-death experience. All of a sudden they pop out of their consciousness and they get this third-party perspective where now they're viewing their life and feeling their whole thing and everything about their life, maybe their diet, their relationships, anything, you name it. They get this aha moment. Now what happens is, even though you can jump out of your paradigm, this is the important part, even though, as there were these Mickey Mouse things, even though you can jump out of your paradigm and look at your whole life and your career, and this is where people have like midlife crises sometimes, is where they jump out and then they can't get back in. Like they have this shift in their consciousness where all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what's going on with my life? I want to do something totally different. They see their life going by or whatever happens for them that triggers this thing. They go into, just as an example, this midlife crisis or whatever, or quarter life crisis. They start bucking the system and they just start radically making all these changes in their life and in their environment and in their decisions. Radical changes all of a sudden, right? Now, people look at it sometimes in a negative perspective and say, oh my God, they're having a midlife crisis, it's a bad thing. And all of a sudden they're changing their relationship, they're getting divorced, they're changing their career, they're starting a business. Like, how is that necessarily a bad thing? Only could be bad to the people that are affected by it in a way that, because what's happening is there's all these, and I learned this from Dr. Joe Dispenza, there's all these subconscious and unconscious agreements in the fabric of how you and people that you know, you're not even aware that you have all these agreements of how you behave around each other, with each other, and how your relationship goes, and you don't even think that all of a sudden if you start behaving radically different, they're going to be affected by it, because now they don't know where to put you and place you, so they just say you're going crazy. But you might not be going crazy, you might just be having a massive breakthrough, and you're just different now. And so that's where like love comes in, because love covers all. Can you love somebody through their changes, good or bad or right or wrong, right? So with that being said, what happens now, let's just say you're not having some type of crisis, you just had this temporarily, this pop where you pop out of your current, you had this altered state of consciousness, and then you look back at here and you go, whoa, oh my God. So you have these things, you might want to write it down or take these things with you. You can make these crazy changes in your life that now become effortless, because you no longer have habit gravity pulling at you. Now something that you've wanted to do or achieve or become, or something you've wanted to chase or build, or something you've wanted to just weave into, manifest into the fabric of reality, that it was so hard for you before based off these current habits and circumstances. Huh?
How do I pay you?
Cash, check, or credit?
Okay. Because I'm going to be taking off soon. So if I leave
Sure.
check, I'll leave it with my son.
Perfect.
Just bring Virgo.
Okay.
I don't know how much longer you're gonna be, but
Probably an hour and a half, 2 hours.
I'll probably be back with it.
Okay.
But if not, just bring a Virgo.
Okay.
You wanna just call me when you're done?
Yeah, I can call you. I can send you pictures. I'll send you your invoice, and
Okay.
we can square up. And...
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so so I'm like really on a job site right now, and a customer just came up to talk to me. But I understand what I'm doing has value, and this is very important. If you allow shame to overcome you, say, "Oh, I need to get back to work," then you're going to be fucking 20 years later in your life still doing the same shit for a living. If you don't like what you're doing, because you are conforming to the rules of a reality that you co-created, right? Okay, so you look at your life, back to what I was saying, and you might have this tremendous breakthrough where you all of a sudden now something that was very hard for you to do just becomes easy. You could build $1 million business. You can invent this thing. You could finally create this prototype of something that's been so much resistance for you for so long. You can create it now effortlessly. Why? Because your beliefs have changed, and something that seemed hard before now seems easy. Now, hopefully you don't have some breakthrough all of a sudden you start like doing drugs or bad things, stuff like that. Like, hopefully that you're aware that you don't like it doesn't have a negative effect, and that's not what I'm trying to talk about here. I'm trying to talk about positive things. But here's what happens. Now you have this altered state, you have these ahas and awakening moments, but all of a sudden you naturally go back in. You got to go back to work. You have the same home, you drive the same car, you have the same scenarios and situations, the same little family dramas, the same pets, same clothes, you brush your teeth. Everything that you do, you have habits built into the neural network of your conscious and unconscious system, and it's been woven so many times that, just like when I moved into my new house last year, it took me literally 4 months to where I just unconsciously knew where every light switch was. I ain't even lying. The first 2 months of moving into my house, I couldn't find the light switches. I'm in the shower, I banged my elbow on the soap dish 3 times in the shower because I soap them, I was like, why do I keep doing this? Because you have to learn the map and the territory and the environment. Once it all becomes habit, you're actually living in a simulation that everything that you do every day in the streets you drive on, you know it so well that there's a map, like a video game, like a map inside of you that knows unconsciously where everything is, where the fridge is, how to eat, and then you're thinking the same damn thoughts every day too. So when I say habit gravity, you actually get sucked back in to your habits and everything, the shapes that you get sucked back in to the previous or current shape. Imagine a shape. You get right like a mold, you're sucked back in. So you might have this meditational breakthrough in this aha moment. So something you want to do in your life, but you can't have the breakthrough and you're not getting there because you keep getting sucked back in to the shape that you're so comfortable in. It's your comfort zone. And whether that's good for you or bad for you, or this comfort zone, you could do a lot of things that don't serve you, like get up in the middle of the night and binge eat a bunch of bad food and drink pop and smoke dope. I don't know, but you can't help it. And it's because the ego in your consciousness, your nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system, wired and hardwired into your survival, literally wants to maintain consistency, which protects you and makes you feel safe. It's like this AI computer mainframe that is your consciousness and your mind-body experience. It has all these weird little bumpers installed that you're not aware, you can't articulate, but it's actually protecting you. But at the same time, when it comes to just from getting just beyond like survival in life to trying to do like amazing things, if you want to be like the top 1% of people who break through and just do amazing artistic creative things or build like a huge business, you don't have to, some people can do it without learning about this stuff, but become very mindful that you do have this neural network in this mainframe. Like you're a computer, you're like a cyborg, that you have choice in the moment, but you don't really have choice because you're being pulled in all these directions. That 90% of all the thoughts that you think are like the same thoughts every single day over and over. Do you know anybody who's like, You've known this person 20, 30 years and they're still thinking the same thoughts. They're still living in a time in a past that doesn't exist anymore, wishing things were different, or complaining about their life. And they're like, or you start talking to them and they just start going off telling you stories about their problems, and they're completely unconscious, like the lights are off, and they're not even aware that they're running a script. They could have had some little tiny trigger that just triggered an emotion, or they could have just spoke something that gave them a thought, and then the thought triggered an access to file, the script starts running, and now they're just unconscious for a half an hour, babbling your face off, telling you some bullshit about something that happened 15 fucking years ago. And you're like, whoa, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Right, so now think about if you have a bunch of those things, the more time you spend not being mindful, the more time in your life that you spend not dealing with your problems and your bullshit or something that happened to you when you were a kid, is the more and more unconscious you become, and the more thicker the layers of this jawbreaker becomes, and you become permanently stuck in this thing your whole life. So you're just stuck, and you could live your whole life out 90 years and die and never even access all the different layers and levels and lines and states and stages of reality. And the more that you can look at this thing as a game, so oh my God, what if I did something different today? What if I took a different street home? What if I instead of eating like spaghetti tonight, I just ate like oysters and clams, or did something? What if I just got up and did 25 push-ups? What if I got up and ran around my block? Like, what if I just did shit that I never did before, and called people I never called, and solved relationships, and told people I love them, and forgave people, and like just started dressing a little bit different, just push the boundaries, start taking chances on things that you keep questioning yourself about. I do that, right? I question myself all the time, right? It's some old habit pattern. But what can happen is you can start to peer into these different states of consciousness. You go, whoa, you're never the same. Oh my God. Now you start to become integral in your consciousness. So instead of polarizing on one thing, you can extrapolate information based off one piece of data. You can start to see everything three-dimensionally that's going on. Just like my friend Daniel, the arborist, he looks at a tree and he sees one little tiny, some leaves that have a little bit of a fungal infection. He looks at them, and then all of a sudden he looks around at the whole neighborhood and he sees a monoculture, and he can see it happening in like 30% of the trees just by looking at them. And he sees that it's starting to like work its way through the neighborhood. And you're like, what are you talking about? I just see trees. He's like, no, dude, this is in decline. There's a problem here. And you're like, whoa, this dude's a genius. Like, now there's people like that care about those types of things, that are in the medical industry, where the people that are coming up with cures for cancer. There's people that notice things, or they have a sensory acuity about something that you think they're nuts, but they're actually onto something, right? So another thing is believing in other people, believing in yourself. We have this weird culture where we don't believe other people. We look down on them, we criticize them, we judge them, we think we're crazy. Just like if you see someone being an asshole in traffic. Oh my God, that maniac just sped by me and cut me off. They're an asshole. You don't know what they have going on. Like, you don't know. So when you see through the eyes of love and equanimity, and you believe that all possibilities exist and everybody is right, like the current state of our economic environment and all this shit going on, through integral consciousness, it says everybody's right. Because if you were to sit each person down and just listen to their story and every reason why they feel that the way that they feel, and they're trying to verbalize what they're saying, they might not even be saying it a way. But if you just let go of all these triggers and you just listen, they have a real reason why they feel the way that they feel. And unfortunately, in the world of commerce that we live in, where everybody's scratching at each other for a buck and everything, you got to make money. If you're not going to benefit me, I don't have to. Like, if everybody just like saw through it, elevated their consciousness, there would be so much more peace just by letting go of these weird. So I don't want to trigger on that, but all I want to do is encourage you to think about what I said. Listen to some Ken Wilber, Cosmic Consciousness Sounds True, some Eckhart Tolle. And if you could just have a reduction in the amount of thoughts that you have, and just be present. Without labeling everything and labeling yourself, and just be. What happens is these feelings, like your ego doesn't want to be present. You'll start freaking out. You'll start feeling real uncomfortable. It's just a feeling, like you just be right here, right now. And the moment will inform you what to do. When you be, and just be buoyant, be in a state of well-being, the moment informs you of what to do. Just like when you know why, the how is automatic. When you know why, or you know your life's purpose, and you know why you want to do something, and you have a deep driving reason and a desire of why, the how becomes easy. Have you ever had anything in your life you can't figure out how to do it for so long, then all of a sudden you're under a tremendous amount of pressure and you have a deadline? It's like Parkinson's law. Now all of a sudden you're just crushing that shit. You're getting it all done in a very short period of time. And you're like, wait a second, I couldn't get that done in 6 weeks, and all of a sudden I just got it done in 24 hours? How did you just get all that shit done that fast? That's interesting, right? My website went down on my whole website, and I have thousands of links all over the internet. My blog at keithkalfas.com. I stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was in the back end DNS and the coding, the mainframe, and the Cloudflare systems, and going in and I was learning code real fucking fast, dude. I was like, I'm on the phone with customer support. Shit, that gave me anxiety that I couldn't even look at. It was like Chinese to me. Couldn't even figure it out before. Now that my website's down, I was figuring that shit out pretty fast, right? So it's a different elevated state of consciousness. You've raised the necessity on something because why? It's linked to my nervous system, to my survival mode, and all the things that I built are on the line. When your ass is on the line, you start caring a lot different, right? So here's another thing you could do. Just by standing here right now, wind up your consciousness in a positive way and get super alert and aware. Open your eyes, become very aware of this video, your surroundings, your breathing, the buzzing in your feet planted on the ground. The only thing that changed was your decision to ramp up your level of energy. You have access to that right now. Okay? So when you raise the necessity, which is the first step before you do anything, you say, why does this need to be done? How is this tied to my life's purpose or my goals or dreams or destiny or mandates or vision before I leave this planet one day? How is this tied to my legacy? How is this going to help other people? Is this good for me and good for others and good for the greater good? Why does this need to be done? Sometimes the shit don't even need to be done. You're just running around chasing field mice, doing stupid shit that doesn't do anything. So when you, like David Data said, sit down in a room, quiet and alone, with a notepad and a pen, and do not come out until you know your purpose. Some people are afraid to do that because you know why? Because it could literally put a big question mark over everything that they think they know is true and everything that they do every day. They're like, oh, I actually don't want to face all that because now I'm realizing that I haven't been on purpose and walking in my destiny. It's scary to consider that years have gone by and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, because now when you do that, you gotta pick up the cross of responsibility and become accountable. And then you start to think, oh my God, every thought I think and every word I speak and everything that I do has tied to a definite action, has a reverberational quantified butterfly effect that echoes around the world into eternity and changes people's lives. Every single thing that you do and every thought that you think is affecting the greater whole of the world that we live in and everybody in it. So then you start to think, oh my God, we are all one. We are omni, we are one. We are reflections of God. It's like if you take a mirror and you shatter it, and there's billions of pieces reflecting in all different ways. That's all of us, but it all comes from the same source. If you go to the ocean and just take out one little molecule of H2O water, and you say, well, what is it like? And you examine it. Well, it's like its source. It's like where it came from. You can see what's in the entire ocean, not off a molecule, but off a thimble of water. You can see that's what's. So what I mean is, even though we have all these differences, we are very all much the same, and you realize that we are one. So if you are your brother's keeper, and the person that's walking down the street that you don't know, or the person that you see on the news, that we share the very same blood in our veins and DNA and skin, and we breathe the same air, that there are supposedly molecules inside of you that are the very same air molecules that Jesus himself have breathed on some, quark level. because I mean, that's dope when you look at like, all right, I'm done. I'm getting back to trimming these trees. I feel so much better. I got all that out.